Apostle Johnson Suleman publicly declared that those responsible for Nnamdi Kanu's prolonged detention are not the usual suspects like Nigerian political leaders or the All Progressives Congress Party, but rather people close to Nnamdi Kanu, particularly fellow Igbo people. Apostle Johnson Suleman emphasized that some prominent Igbo individuals, including elders, governors and kings, have betrayed Nnamdi Kanu by criticizing him publicly and working against his release behind closed doors. Apostle Johnson Suleman revealed that many people believed Nnamdi Kanu was afraid of the Department of State Services due to his calm behavior in court, but in reality, he has been fearless and outspoken even while in detention. Apostle Johnson Suleman further stated that Nnamdi Kanu has already been given opportunities to be released from detention, but he refused because the conditions involved renouncing the Biafra agitation, which he sees as a betrayal of his people. Apostle Johnson Suleman criticized the hypocrisy among some Igbo elites who refused to support Nnamdi Kanu's cause and instead empowered the federal government's efforts to keep him behind bars. Nnamdi Kanu alleged that these lies are being spread by a fake group created by the DSS to sabotage the indigenous people of Biafra movement and mislead the public into abandoning the struggle. He further condemned those using the Biafra name for personal enrichment, calling them puppets of the Nigerian government and foreign intelligence services. Apostle Johnson Suleman concluded with a call for unity among Igbo people, stressing that if all Igbo leaders, elders and citizens stood together and demanded Nnamdi Kanu's release, no force could stop it. But their division is what enables his continued detention. The congregation had just settled into the evening service, and as the melodies of worship slowly faded into silence, the atmosphere inside the auditorium of Omega Fire Ministries in Oki, Edo State, Nigeria, became still. Apostle Johnson Suleman stood quietly at the pulpit for a brief moment, allowing the silence to speak before he did. When he finally began to talk, his voice was calm but firm, his eyes scanning the crowd with the seriousness of a man about to deliver a heavy truth. It was in that moment that he dropped a spiritual bombshell, a revelation that would go on to shake many, both inside and outside the church walls. Apostle Johnson Suleman did not begin with politics or condemnation. He started with a heartache, a deep, almost personal frustration that had grown over time as he watched the suffering of a fellow Nigerian, Nnamdi Kanu, the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, whose prolonged incarceration has stirred a storm of controversy across Nigeria and even beyond. Most people expected him to echo the usual line, that it was the federal government of Nigeria, the Department of State Services, the ruling All Progressives Congress Party, or President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who were chiefly responsible for the continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu. But Apostle Johnson Suleman said something entirely different. What he said that night left a shockwave. Apostle Johnson Suleman boldly declared that the people most responsible for the suffering of Nnamdi Kanu were not the usual suspects. They were not the ones Nigerians were pointing fingers at. Instead, he said they were people very close to Nnamdi Kanu. They were people of the same tribe, people who shared his bloodline, his language, his culture, and his ancestral identity. According to Apostle Johnson Suleman, it was prominent individuals from the southeastern region of Nigeria, particularly fellow Igbo elders, politicians, kings, and opinion leaders who had betrayed Nnamdi Kanu. The silence in the church deepened as people absorbed what he had just said. The truth, Apostle Johnson Suleman explained, was bitter but necessary. Over the years there had been whispers and rumors in the background, allegations that some Igbo leaders were playing double games. Publicly, they spoke about peace, reconciliation, and justice. They posed for photos. They released statements. But privately, they held secret meetings, wrote incriminating letters, and made sure that Nnamdi Kanu remained locked up under harsh conditions in the custody of the Department of State Services. Apostle Johnson Suleman said he was aware that many people believed that Nnamdi Kanu had grown timid inside the Department of State Services detention facility. That his calmness in court, his quiet posture during hearings, his lack of outward aggression or resistance were signs that he was now broken. But the preacher quickly dismissed that impression. Nnamdi Kanu, he said, had not been silenced. He had not been afraid. He was still the same man with courage in his heart and a purpose in his soul. He went further to reveal that Nnamdi Kanu had even been given several opportunities to walk out of prison, but that each opportunity came with one painful condition. Each time, the government or its representatives presented Nnamdi Kanu with a choice. Accept your freedom and publicly denounce the Biafran movement. Walk away from your people, disown their cry for independence, call your agitation a mistake, and you will be free. But Nnamdi Kanu, Apostle Johnson Suleman said, refused. He refused to renounce Biafra, not because he was stubborn or proud, but because he believed it would be a betrayal of millions of people who trusted him. According to Apostle Johnson Suleman, that kind of conviction was rare and costly. It was easy to judge people from the outside, he said, but it took real courage to stay behind bars when the door was open, especially when the only price of walking out was to deny your truth. Apostle Johnson Suleman did not stop there. He turned his attention to the role of hypocrisy among the Igbo elite. He said it plainly, that many Igbo political leaders, traditional rulers, and business tycoons had chosen silence, convenience, and personal gain over truth, justice, and unity. Instead of standing up for Nnamdi Kanu, they had stood by the federal government. Instead of defending their own son, they had collaborated with his oppressors. Some had even celebrated his arrest behind closed doors, hoping that his absence would open doors for their own political ambitions. To Apostle Johnson Suleman, this betrayal was the true tragedy. He explained that liberation and justice do not come only through international advocacy or courtroom debates. Real change, he said, often begins with unity. Unity among those who are most affected. If every Igbo leader had come together, if they had spoken with one voice, if they had put aside their selfish interests and declared boldly that Nnamdi Kanu must be released, the pressure would have been unstoppable. But they did not. Instead, they quarreled among themselves. They distanced themselves from the Biafran struggle. They remained comfortable in Abuja, Lagos, and foreign capitals, while one of their own was being humiliated in detention. Apostle Johnson Suleman said this silence was not innocence, it was complicity. In the same vein, Nnamdi Kanu himself also addressed some of the lies that had been circulating in the public space. Speaking through a video message, he responded to accusations that he and his wife had registered the indigenous people of Biafra as a business in the United Kingdom. He called those claims a blatant lie, the work of propaganda masterminded by the Department of State Services. He urged the public to do one simple thing: check the official United Kingdom Company House registry. If the indigenous people of Biafra was registered as a business, it would be there for everyone to see. But no one ever found it. Nnamdi Kanu argued that such lies were being used to discredit the movement. He said a fake group had been created by the Department of State Services with the aim of misleading the public, dividing supporters, and disorganizing the fight for Biafran independence. He accused this fake group of being filled with paid agents, individuals who used the name of Biafra to gather funds, exploit emotions, and funnel wealth into their personal accounts while pretending to be activists. These, he said, were not true believers in the Biafran cause. They were puppets of the Nigerian government and, according to him, they were being assisted by foreign intelligence services who had no interest in the liberation of the Igbo people. Apostle Johnson Suleman echoed these concerns. He said it was painful to watch people exploit a sacred cause for material gain. He lamented how easily public opinion could be manipulated, and how even genuine supporters of Nnamdi Kanu were beginning to doubt him, not because of what he had done, but because of lies told by enemies wearing the clothing of friends. He warned Nigerians to be careful about the information they consume, and especially urged Biafrans not to abandon a man who had sacrificed so much. In conclusion, Apostle Johnson Suleman made a heartfelt appeal. He called on all Igbo leaders, elders, traditional rulers, politicians and citizens, both in Nigeria and abroad, to put aside their differences and unite. He said that if all the Igbo people, regardless of their political affiliation, social class, or religious background, would speak with one voice and insist on the immediate release of Nnamdi Kanu, the Nigerian government would have no choice but to obey. It would not be a matter of negotiation anymore. It would be a moral uprising too loud to ignore. But instead, the divisions among the Igbo people have become a weapon in the hands of those who want to keep Nnamdi Kanu behind bars. The betrayal has made his chains tighter, his voice more isolated, and his path more difficult. It was a moment of spiritual confrontation inside the church that day. Who has often been known more for his fiery sermons and charitable work than for political statements, decided to say what many others feared to say. And in doing so, he opened the eyes of many Nigerians to a deeper, more painful reality, that sometimes the strongest chains are not forged by enemies, but by friends. As the congregation sat in silence, many of them were visibly shaken. Some wept, some bowed their heads, some looked stunned, but the truth had been spoken, and once the truth is spoken, it can no longer be buried. Outside the church, the news of the sermon spread like wildfire. Videos of the moment flooded social media. Some praised Apostle Johnson Suleman for his bravery. Others criticized him, accusing him of stirring division. But regardless of the reactions, one thing became clear. He had touched a nerve. He had brought into public view the uncomfortable question of internal betrayal within the Biafran struggle. And as this discussion continued to grow across Nigeria and beyond, the hope was that perhaps, just perhaps, this revelation might force a new kind of unity. A unity that does not just chant slogans or wear symbols, but one that faces the hard truths, heals the wounds of betrayal, and reclaims the soul of a people yearning for justice and freedom. Because, for Nnamdi Kanu, the prison walls may be made of concrete and iron, but the betrayal of his own people, that perhaps is the heaviest burden he has had to carry. After the service ended that evening at Omega Fire Ministries, many of the members did not leave immediately. Groups of men and women stood in clusters around the church compound, their voices low but filled with intensity. Some shook their heads, others simply stared into the air as if trying to process everything they had just heard. The moment was heavy. Apostle Johnson Suleman had not just delivered a sermon. He had peeled back a layer of deception that had rested like a fog over the Biafran question for years. His words, though few, exposed a bitter truth that many had long suspected but had never been brave enough to confront. That night, as the news traveled across Nigeria and into the diaspora communities in the United States of America, the United Kingdom, Canada, Germany, South Africa, and other countries where Igbo people reside, a kind of quiet storm began to rise. Social media platforms, especially X, Facebook and Instagram, became the new pulpit. Clips of Apostle Johnson Suleman's message were shared with titles that varied from "Finally, the truth is out" to "Apostle Suleman exposes Igbo betrayers." In the southeastern region of Nigeria, the reactions were mixed. Some traditional rulers called emergency meetings with their cabinet members. There was panic among certain political figures who had previously criticized Nnamdi Kanu's style of agitation. Some of these individuals had secretly visited Abuja in the past to assure federal officials that the Biafran movement had no real support back home. But now, with Apostle Johnson Suleman putting the blame at their feet, they began to worry about backlash from the people. A prominent politician from Abia State who requested anonymity was heard saying, "This thing Apostle Suleman has said will stir the hornet's nest. Many of us are now exposed. The people will ask questions. The people will demand answers." Indeed, people were already asking questions. If what Apostle Johnson Suleman said was true, that Nnamdi Kanu was betrayed by his own brothers, then who exactly were those people, and what were their motivations? Some analysts believe that the betrayal is deeply rooted in political rivalry. Nnamdi Kanu's influence among the Igbo people was unmatched, especially among the youth. His ability to command loyalty and mobilize action frightened not just the federal government, but also many Igbo politicians who had grown used to controlling public opinion in the region. With Nnamdi Kanu's popularity growing every year, these politicians began to see him as a threat to their ambitions, not because he was contesting elections, but because he had the moral authority they lacked. It is important to understand that in southeastern Nigeria, the concept of leadership is not just about holding office. It is about being accepted by the people. It is about having the cultural, emotional and historical respect of the community. Nnamdi Kanu had that. He spoke the language of the people. He addressed their pain. He remembered the civil war. He honored the fallen. He gave dignity to those who felt abandoned by the federal structure of Nigeria. This kind of influence is something that no political campaign or government appointment could purchase. Many of these political leaders and traditional rulers were not comfortable with this. So rather than support him, they distanced themselves from him. Some went a step further, actively working against him, feeding the federal government with reports about his activities, movements and supporters. Some even testified in secret that keeping Nnamdi Kanu in custody would help calm the region. Meanwhile, among the common people, the traders, the farmers, the students, the teachers, the market women, the artisans, there was a deep and growing anger. These were the people who had felt the loss most acutely. When sit-at-home protests were declared in solidarity with Nnamdi Kanu, it was not the elites who closed their shops. It was not the governors or commissioners who stayed indoors. It was the common people, sacrificing their daily income to send a message of loyalty. These people felt that they had been used. They believed in a cause, only to discover that those at the top had long abandoned the struggle. Apostle Johnson Suleman's words gave language to their frustration. For the first time, someone with national recognition, someone with a large platform, had told the truth that they already knew in their hearts, that the betrayal came from within. But the matter did not end there. Shortly after Apostle Johnson Suleman's sermon went viral, several prominent Igbo personalities began issuing statements. Some tried to distance themselves from the accusation. A well-known traditional ruler in Anambra State issued a press release insisting that he had always supported the release of Nnamdi Kanu and had even sent emissaries to negotiate with federal authorities. Others, however, remained silent. Their silence was louder than any denial. It was around this same time that Nnamdi Kanu's legal team began to take strategic steps to reopen public discourse around his detention. They held a press conference in Abuja where they referenced Apostle Johnson Suleman's message as evidence that the struggle for Nnamdi Kanu's freedom was not just a legal issue, but a moral one. They pointed out that if spiritual leaders and human rights advocates were now speaking out about internal betrayal, then it was time for the public to look beyond government and ask what role the Igbo elite had truly played in the suffering of their own son. Apostle Johnson Suleman's message was also echoed in some churches in the southeastern region. In places like Enugu, Owerri, Aba, and Onitsha, pastors began to quote his words during Sunday services. They used his message to call for repentance, unity, and boldness. They reminded their members that even in the Bible, betrayal was not new. They spoke of how Joseph was sold by his brothers, of how Jesus Christ was handed over by someone close to him. The message was clear: betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from within. In the following weeks, several groups began to organize town hall meetings across southeastern Nigeria. These meetings were not political in nature. They were gatherings of ordinary people, community leaders, youth organizations, women's groups, and retired elders. The purpose of the meetings was simple: to discuss what could be done to reunite the Igbo people and demand Nnamdi Kanu's release with one voice. For too long, the region had been divided along political, religious, and ideological lines. Apostle Johnson Suleman's message served as a spark to begin the healing process. One of the most moving scenes took place in Abakaliki, the capital of Ebonyi State, where a group of elderly women dressed in traditional attire gathered at the town square, lit candles, and began to sing old war songs that had been used during the Biafran War. Their voices trembled, not because they were weak, but because they were full of sorrow. They sang not for war, but for justice. They said they were tired of watching their children disappear into silence, and they demanded that the betrayal must stop. Nnamdi Kanu's message about fake agents and propaganda also began to gain traction. Some investigative journalists in the United Kingdom began to look into the claim that the indigenous people of Biafra had been registered as a business. After extensive searches through the United Kingdom's official Company House database, there was no record of such a registration. This confirmed what Nnamdi Kanu had always said, that the claim was false and was part of a deliberate attempt to damage his credibility. Furthermore, some former insiders who had worked with the Department of State Services or been informants began to speak out anonymously. One such person, whose voice was disguised in a viral audio clip, admitted that part of his job was to pose as a Biafran supporter online and spread misinformation to divide the movement. He confessed that he was paid monthly to create confusion within pro-Biafra groups and make the public doubt Nnamdi Kanu's intentions. These revelations further validated the concerns raised by Nnamdi Kanu and Apostle Johnson Suleman, that the struggle was under attack not just from outside, but from inside. And if the people did not rise now to defend the truth, they risked losing everything. Not just Nnamdi Kanu, but their voice, their dignity, and their future. Apostle Johnson Suleman had thrown a stone into a still pond, and the ripples were now reaching every corner of Nigerian society. And yet, in the midst of all this awakening, one question remained: what would be the result of this new awareness? Would the Igbo leaders now come together in truth, or would they return to their silence once the noise died down? That question remains unanswered. But what is clear is that a seed has been planted, and if nurtured with courage, honesty, and unity, it may one day grow into the very force that sets Nnamdi Kanu free, not just from a physical prison, but from the chains of betrayal.
Tell you I'm saying that. You don't need to join cult as an Igbo man to prosper. It's already your right. Wait, you're not getting me. Let me explain to you. You are not understanding me. When you understand spiritual things, it is your right. I've been around the world. I've been to nations, places like Belarus, places like Suleman Island, some places that are very extreme, places like Azerbaijan. You go to such places, you must see an Igbo man. Somebody will come and pick me from the airport in a place like Belarus, Solomon Temple. I will say, what is your name? My name is Chidoke. What's your name? My name is this one. My name is that one. He come with the wife. The wife brings meal. Madam, what's your name? My name is Chinyere. I say, are you to reach this place? It is their right. Something that God has given you as your right. Why will you now add the devil on top of what you are supposed to get naturally? Any man that joins a cult is not wise. Because by your right, prosperity is already yours. Why will you not add the devil to it? I wish I was talking to somebody. Why not add God into the scheme of God, into the prosperity that He has given you? You know, many of you are born again, you don't have car, you don't know the enjoyment you are having. That man that you see that have fleets of business, that is an occultic man. If you know what he's doing to keep himself in that cult, I don't understand how a young boy will go and join cult. Young boy at your age, they carry you, tie red cloth on your waist, tie red on your head, and at night 28 years old, you are doing this that is meant for old men. At the age of 28, and they rub white chalk around your eye like that, and you are going like that. When people are sleeping, a 30-year-old boy, you are doing following your father's and your grandfather's age mates, carrying pot. You can get money. What is money? Money is a little piece of paper with dead men's picture. Those in that your currency, are they still alive? Is Nnamdi Kanu alive? Is Tafa Balewa alive? They are not alive. Are you following me? It is the nature. I've told this around the world. And I say this. Sometimes people ask me, I said something one time, let me correct it. Or let me emphasize it. Because many people, they don't hear, they don't have sense. I said something and they cut a part of the video that I hate Igbos. It's not my problem if people don't have sense. I said, and I'm repeating it. I said, the problem of the Igbo are Igbos. That's what I said. I said only a shameless Igbo will be fighting an Igbo man like him. They cut that. If you follow social media, you'll be deceived. They cut that part. I said Igbos are shameless. Listen, 50% of the members of my church in the headquarters are Igbos. Igbos. I am not following in Nigeria from the east. So what will I? But I'm saying I'm the first pastor in Nigeria that said release Nnamdi Kanu. I'm the first. It's on the internet. I said if the government has said release a man, if the law rather has said release a man, the government is not bigger than the law. I said release him. I didn't even know his name fully. Number two, which is important. Don't forget I said three things. Number one, I say have a relationship with God. Number two, which is important, mind the company you keep. Mind the company you keep. There are some people that are in the same line of business with you. You are only business partners. You are not friends. Anyone that is not going where you are going in life is not your friend. Anyone that does not serve your God is not your friend. Anyone that comes and says today is weekend, today is Friday, let's go to club, is not your friend. You cannot work from morning till evening. Even when you should be resting, you carry yourself and you are shaking your body again in the club. You don't get sense. Well, let me say this to you. There are people that once they enter your life, it's bad things. There are some people that attract God into your life. In Genesis 26:24, God said to Isaac, I will bless you because of Abraham, your father's sake. In Proverbs 13:20, he said, he that walketh with the wise shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. A companion of a fool shall be destroyed. Proverbs 28:19, he that tilleth his ground shall have plenty of silver, but he that followeth after vain persons shall have poverty enough. Mind the company you keep. Mind the people as a man that you keep. How can you have a friend, he always buy you free drink but does not give you free money? Yeah, come. Take anything here. Take anything here. I declare, you can take at least 5 as fruit. Take it, drink. Give me money. No, they can't give you money. That's not a friend. That is a gutter partner. A partner that wants you to end up falling in the gutter. Cut off. Anybody that's not adding to your life is taking from your life. Cut off from friends that will tell you to steal your gas money to give your girlfriend. Cut off. When you are serving a man as an apprentice and you steal from him, no problem. You will open your own business. The Almighty God will position like 15 thieves who will come like apprentice. They will so steal from you, they will steal your money, steal your handset and your charger. They will empty you so that you will understand that whatever a man soweth, it's a time. Who is your friend? If you must stand blameless before God, who is your friend? Let me ask somebody, who is your friend? Who is that person you want to get married, young man? Who is that girl you want to marry? A girl that knows that everything in your shop is 2 million, and she give you bill of 1.9. That is not a wife material. That is a fire extinguisher. She wants to quench your shop. You are a young lady. Who do you want to marry? Today you are out for the man who has money, and there's a young man who loves you genuinely, but you are following that one that has money. I tell them in our church, I say follow a man with vision, not a man with television. I tell them in our church, I say when you leave a man with vision and follow a man with television, tomorrow you will watch the man with vision in your husband's television. Can I repeat that? When you leave a man with vision and follow a man with television, tomorrow you will watch the man with vision in your husband's television. Somebody from the south, somebody from the east, you betray your people. Look at this agitation now for this. Is it Biafra? Look at the agitation. Who are the people attacking Biafra most? Igbos. Shameless Igbos. But even if you don't agree with the man who is your brother, should you say it publicly if you are not a fool? Can't you say it amongst your people? If today they get that Biafra, it's an Igbo man that will scatter it. That's the truth. Wait. During the time of the Senate, when an Igbo man became a senator, it was an Igbo man that removed him. You remember the Enwerem, Chuba Okadigbo, Payosanyim? You remember all of them? It was Igbo that was removing Igbo. That was the first and the shortest Senate presidency we have had in this country. An Igbo man employs an Igbo boy to sell in his shop. He will wreck him. He will carry all the man's money, be buying land. He won't wait to be settled. The problem of Igbo is Igbo. I repeat it, if you sell your brother, even the buyers will not trust you. Even if my brother is saying something that is wrong, I'm going to correct him, but I will not do that publicly. I will fight for him publicly. I will get indoors and say, come, don't do this. Oh, he's wrong. But no. I'm not scared of anybody. I stand for the truth. I stand for the truth. To what stupid truth? I stand for the truth. I will say, I don't care whether we are from the same ethnic group. I stand for the truth. I stand for the truth. Oh, me, I cannot compromise. I cannot bend. You don't bend already. You don't already bend. You are already bent.
I do not know what is wrong with some of you. Honestly speaking, I have no idea what is wrong with some of you. But here we are going to educate you until you become enlightened, even if we have to do it by force. This very group that doesn't exist, created by the Nigerian government to attack IPOB and to attack the entire Biafran agenda and, of course, my good self. They said that I changed the status of IPOB in England, that I changed it, and that I put my name and that of my wife on the registration of IPOB in the United Kingdom. Something that is a blatant lie. A blatant lie. Deception peddled by idiots working for the zoo, hoping for a new Nigeria. They are working in collaboration with those of them who are deceivers and liars, telling you about a new Nigeria. Through Biafra agitation, you get a new Nigeria. There are mad people everywhere, lunatics everywhere. This maybe. They claim that Kanu changed the documentation of IPOB as a business organization based in London and owned by himself and the wife. Vanguard could not bother to just Google Companies House, United Kingdom. Every business registration in England is registered with Companies House in Cardiff, Wales. Every business registration. A whole Vanguard newspaper could not go to type in to find out if this stupid nonsense from DSS is true or not. They couldn't do it because they know we are growing stronger. They know we are waxing all over the world. They know that ESN has come to stay. They know that our people in the diaspora, they are funding ESN. They know, understand it very well. They want to get into your heart. They know as an Igbo man, some of you are very stupid and idiotic. Once you talk about money and business, all your antennas rise up. Without asking them, please, can you show us proof? Where is this registration you are talking about entered into? You claim it's in England, then show us the proof. Anybody this morning can go to Companies House, UK. Go to Google, type in Companies House, UK. Search for IPOB and search for the directors of all the registered IPOB concern you have. IPOB is a community interest group. It is not a business. Nobody registered anything. Neither myself nor my wife, nobody. They said it's on the 16th of January. I challenge anybody to go. Look at how DSS, as stupid as they are, look at how they are lying like little children. Little alabajiri children who are full of lies and they are takia. They think they can deceive people. You don't know I'm alive, you cannot deceive people. You cannot. Mbappe said, oh, you cannot, you see, ordinary rat in the house cannot steal something from somebody who is awake, only if you're sleeping. You bring all this your stupid, idiotic lies and you want people to believe you. A group that doesn't exist. Nobody has ever asked the question, who is the leader of the, why don't they grant live interview? I am live and direct and the whole world is listening. A fake group. Designed by DSS and given to some of you claiming you're fighting for Biafra, some of you being deceived by MI5, some of you idiots that have only power and glory and money making at heart. You are not freedom fighters and can never be. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Because as a freedom fighter, you are called to serve your people. You don't arrogate that very position to yourself. All of you using Biafra to be working for MI5, using Biafra to be working for the zoo, all of you will be disgraced comprehensively and totally. I'm telling you, and you will all die a very shameful and miserable death. All of you peddling this junk, that some of you are even so idiotic, one fool actually sent it to me. Is it true? Can't you go to Google and Google UK Companies House and go to IPOB and see those who are registered there or not? and see if the name of my wife is there or not. That is why Africa is backwards. People don't even do common research. Common research to go and find out if an allegation is true or false. Is just to be peddling it because you're very lazy mentally and physically. That's why you're poor and wretched. That's why Africa is backwards, and that's what we are fighting very, very hard to reverse. They claim that Kanu changed the documentation so that when Biafrans will hear it all over, hey, Chimo, he changed it. Unanuka, have you heard it? I will no longer contribute. All they are trying to do is to stop the funding of ESN. That's what they're looking for. If you don't, let me tell you. They know that some of you are very stupid and hopeless. Once you listen to gossip, your life, your brain will enter into overdrive. They know how to get you. Look at how Fulani Janjaweed are playing with your brain cells. So you will stop funding IPOB. The idiot that looks like somebody who hasn't been employed since graduation are saying, I have now given up. I'm no longer going to do this. I'm now going to work with a group that is working with the Nigerian government. Can you believe such rubbish? And Vanguard newspaper had the temerity to publish such junk. They are part and parcel of the problem in the zoo. The quality, or should I say lack of decent journalists in the zoo is part of the problem bedeviling that damnable zoological republic. No wonder white people see black people as natural liars and deceivers. The whole newspaper publishing not only falsehood from a group that doesn't exist, a group that do not exist, because they were formed by DSS, given to Vanguard newspaper to publish, and they've been given money to them. You give money to a journalist in Nigeria, they'll publish anything for you. But unfortunately for them, they never knew that I would respond to this. But I will. All they're trying to do is to stop the funding. I maintain that we are whiter than white and whiter than snow. That is why Elohim is with us. That is why anything we say comes to pass. Because God Almighty in heaven can see the hearts of men. Once you're honorable, anything you say will come to pass. That is how you know. By these signs you shall know them. When they say something and it comes to pass, you know that you are on the right path. What is it? There's only one thing that I've said that hasn't happened yet. Of course, it happened somehow last year where we won the full manifestation of it, which is the coming of Biafra, or the declaration of the Biafran Republic. Everything else I've said has come to pass. Very, very sad indeed. Very, very sad indeed. Reacting to this in a statement, the coalition called on well-meaning Igbo sons and daughters to pull out of the group because they know that we are formidable. They know that IPOB is very strong. They will tell you this Igbo. They know that IPOB is everywhere. I've been holding meetings with every relevant stakeholder in the southern part of Biafra and in the coastal region. You see the effort they are making with their BBC to narrow our agitation, to make it Igbo. They know that we are everywhere. I keep holding meetings with important people, with youth groups right across the length and breadth of Biafra land, even into the so-called middle belt. They don't know this. They don't know that we are in control. They have no idea. They try to narrow it down to Igbo this, Igbo that. When that fails, they now come up with their lies. Nnamdi Kanu registered something with his wife, which is a lie. Can't you listening to this rubbish, can't you go into Google and Google something and find out? I told them that they will come with every trick in the book. And we are going to defeat all of them. Every trick in the book, they will come with it. We are going to defeat all of them. I'm telling you the truth. People are calling and we must go to them this morning because this was meant to be an interactive session. But I had to deal with the lies and the gossip and the, maybe they saw the pictures that was released of me. Some of them are even trying to look like me. Some of them are now keeping their beard, their lower beard. They try to maybe dye it a bit of white so it can look like my own. So they can look, people as ugly as Satan himself. They want to appear somehow decent. Because they have seen my photos on social media. They want to look, maybe they think if they look handsome, somehow people will start following them. Okoko, if you're ugly both inside and out. I am 53 years old, but I'm sure I don't look it, because Elohim can see that my heart is pure and genuine. Nobody loves their people more than I do. Nobody can love Biafrans, of course, apart from God in heaven. No human being can. Nor sacrifice what we have sacrificed to ensure that Biafra land is set free. Nobody can. They cannot do it. If you buy them one Cherokee Jeep 4x4, they capitulate, float one contract, you come and guide pipeline for me, they start falling over themselves. We are unbuyable, unbribable.
This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.